Welcome to the 2025 General Election Meet the Candidate Interview Forum. My name is Lindsay Allen, and along with my colleagues Naomi Bouts, Javis Cornett, Hilo Hancock, and Tyrell Stevenson, we'll be your moderators for this year's Meet the Candidate series. This year's forum is presented by the Hagedon Media Group, Quicksilver Studios, and the Joint Public Policy Committee, which represents the Coeur d'Alene Regional, Hayden, Post Falls, and Rathdrum Chambers of Commerce, in partnership with the Coeur d'Alene Post Falls Press. Our Meet the Candidate series features a comprehensive lineup of local races, giving you the opportunity to hear directly from the individuals seeking to serve our communities. This year's interviews include candidates running for Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls, Hayden, and Rathdrum City Councils, Coeur d'Alene and Post Falls mayoral races, Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls, and Lakeland school boards. Each candidate will discuss their priorities, perspectives, and approach to the issues shaping North Idaho's future. Candidates will have 1 minute to introduce themselves, 2 minutes to answer each of 3 questions, and 1 minute for closing remarks. We hope this forum helps you cast an informed, confident vote in our upcoming elections. In this segment, we will be interviewing candidates from Coeur d'Alene City Council. Jeff Doc Larson, you will have 1 minute to introduce yourself. Then I will ask you 3 questions. You will have 2 minutes to answer each question. And then finally, we will have a minute for a closing statement. Jeff, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm actually originally from Canada. I joined the United States military. I was a medic, preventive medicine tech, lab tech, and then counterintelligence special agent. I've got 14 years active duty and 6 years in contracting. In those 14 years, I was actually in the Soldier Show in 2001. So I got to entertain the troops all over the world, which was pretty cool. When I arrived here in January of 2017, it was because my father was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, so we moved up here to take care of them. And my first job was working at Kootenai Health as a security officer. And through a series of interesting events, I wound up starting a company called Quantum Star Technologies, which was based on intellectual property for cybersecurity and artificial intelligence. And since then, I've been working on a lot of small businesses and decided to throw my hat in the ring.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us today. Our first question: how will you address the city's rising housing costs that are forcing many locals to leave? Is there a solution?
Ooh, that is a good question. So unfortunately, there isn't a good solution. Affordable housing, it's just not affordable. We can try to make affordable housing, but it's a very complex issue. So one of the issues that we're running into is density. So for example, if we decided to put 4 tiny homes on the same property that a normal, 2,500 square foot house would go on, you have a density issue. The infrastructure might not be there. We'd have parking issues, water, sewer, things like that. The other problem is Coeur d'Alene is a very finite space, meaning that there is not a lot of room left to grow. So it's a very convoluted and complex problem, and I really don't think there is a good answer. I think what we need to do is really concentrate on what we have currently and make that as affordable as possible. And I think a lot of that has to do with collaboration with a lot of different agencies right now, state being one of them. The more I dig, the more I find out about how the state legislation has unfortunately hogtied us when it comes to getting in money in the general fund that we could probably use to solve some of those problems.
Next question. Can you assure voters you will not vote to raise property taxes? Whether yes or no, please provide an explanation.
Of course. So the answer is no, I can't assure that. And the reason being is that since 2016, there's been some state legislation that's been passed to where we have some issues capturing money for the budget. There has also been a lack of, how should I put this, innovative ways to get revenue into the general fund other than property taxes. And it hasn't been raised for a number of years until this year, of course. And they hit us right between the eyes with 3% and 1% foregone tax. What should have happened was either a small increase in property taxes every year that not a lot of people would notice. It wouldn't affect them that greatly. Or we should have come up with some out-of-the-box ideas to circumvent that. I will say property tax should be the last thing that gets raised after you've exhausted all other ideas on how to bring revenue in, for sure.
Next question. What do you believe is the top challenge facing the city in the years ahead, and what can be done about it?
Yes. So the top challenge is definitely balancing the budget. With the growth that we've had, with the infrastructure that we have, things just get more expensive, not cheaper. With the growth slowing down, that's less money that we're able to capture to go to the general fund to pay for all the services, maintenance, law enforcement, all the first responders. The biggest problem we have to do is fix the budget. And we have to be thinking 10 years ahead with this. Now, my ideas, of course, are in technology because that's the genre I just came from. And I think that we can use a lot of emerging technology to solve these problems by making things way more efficient. I think collaboration with a lot of our local businesses and post-secondary education. I've got some ideas on how we could probably leverage that to bring more revenue in and solve that problem before it becomes a bigger one. But at the end of the day, the budget is definitely the biggest one. And if we don't get ahead of it, it's going to hit us square in the eyes.
Thank you. Okay, you have 1 minute to make a closing statement for us.
Okay. I would say that if people are looking for a socially and fiscally conservative choice for city council that has a new way of looking at things. My background is obviously very different than my opponent's, and I think that lends some credence into bringing in some new ideas to solve these problems before they become bigger problems.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Our next candidate is Kiki Miller. Kiki, you will have 1 minute to introduce yourself, then I'll ask you 3 questions, which you'll have 2 minutes each to answer. Finally, you'll have 1 minute for a closing statement. Kiki, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I have been in Coeur d'Alene since the middle 70s. I always joke that I haven't had to move because the town has changed every 10 years around me. But I love this town. And I owned my own business here for about 30 years. I actually worked for the Coeur d'Alene Press in my early career. So I appreciate you guys putting this on and doing this work. I have been a council member for 3 terms, and I'm running again because I really feel like I've made a difference, especially in problem solving some things at the city and staying in the housing lane, moving forward some great initiatives. So I'm passionate about finishing that kind of work and want to continue with my work with the city.
Thank you for sharing that with us. For our first question, how would you address the city's rising housing costs that are forcing many locals to leave? Is there a solution?
There are many solutions. And for the last 5 years, I have led an organization called the Housing Solutions Partnership. And what we did is we put together all jurisdictions, city planners, and an elected representative. And then we built a toolkit of multiple things that people within our county can do to find attainable housing for our local workers. We've launched multiple things. It's at housingni.org. And I continue to be passionate about leading solutions in housing, attainable housing for our local workers, because that's what makes our community thrive. We've launched home share. We've introduced and implemented deed restrictions that keep the housing prices low. We've done development agreement workshops that are working hand in hand with our developers in order to be able to put forward projects that help our 100% area median income people get into housing. So I want to continue doing that work. I'm sitting on an ad hoc committee right now to put together affordable housing at the Atlas Mill site. And I've got 2 or 3 other projects that are going to launch before the end of the year. And I believe that there are multiple solutions that we can employ, and I want to continue doing that.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. For our next question, can you assure voters you will not vote to raise property tax? Whether yes or no, please provide an explanation.
I can't assure voters that I will not vote to raise property taxes. The city of Coeur d'Alene, like all other jurisdictions in Idaho, has been really kind of hamstrung in the last few years with some legislative actions that have made it very difficult for us to get the revenue that we need in order to supply our basic budget. Now, I feel like raising taxes is one of the revenue streams. Looking at things that we can save money on and be more efficient is another way we can go about that. So I want to try to keep taxes low and reasonable for the services that people get, but there isn't a way that I could guarantee that that wouldn't happen. I think taking a look at what some of the benefits our community gets, we have more staff, less staff right now per population than we did 10 years ago. So our city is running as efficiently as it can. But with some of the inabilities to be able to capture new growth, we're just reduced in revenue, and the things that we planned on coming in from urban renewal districts closing didn't come in. So there's limited things the city can do down the road.
Thank you so much. Going into our final question. What do you believe is the top challenge facing the city in the years ahead, and what can be done about it?
Well, I would say that the attainable housing issue is probably number one for me. I think growth is on everyone's mind, but growth isn't something you can stop. You have to be able to manage it responsibly. And I think getting people into housing that we will need as a community to continue to thrive and grow responsibly is the best and most, the highest use of my time that I think at the city we can put forward things. I know there's public-private partnerships the city's been talking with different people about how we go about providing housing through that. And then there's a lot of little things we need to look at. Our guest status quo in the city, it's changed in the last couple decades. We need to take a look at some of our leases, some of our events, some of the things that we normally do, and what is the impact on that? And reach out to our citizens and say, what services do you want us to provide when we get to a point where we're at a budget impasse? So we need to have more communication on that level. And then, growth in housing, and then taking a look at keeping those efficiencies there.
Now it's time for your closing statement. As a reminder, you have 1 minute. Any final thoughts?
Well, I would like to say I've always been for personal responsibility, limited government, and I really cherish the natural beauty and the citizens' opinions and the value they have on our city. I'm a problem solver. I've brought forward small projects like free compost giveaway to spearheading the Historic Preservation Commission, because these are things that our citizens have wanted. I appreciate the support I've gotten. I have a number of organizations who've endorsed me, and I want to continue to serve and serve well for them. And you can find out more about me at kikimiller.com, and I'd appreciate a vote.
Thank you so much, Kiki.
Our next candidate is Amy Evans. Amy, you will have 1 minute to introduce yourself. Then I will ask you 3 questions, and you will have 2 minutes per question to answer. And then we will have 1 minute for a closing statement. Amy, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a lifelong Idahoan. I've lived in Coeur d'Alene for 28 years, and I've raised my 2 adult children here in Coeur d'Alene. I'm passionate about this community. It's provided such a wonderful place to raise my family. It gave my children just the best upbringing that can be imagined. They went to a downtown school that they were able to walk to every day. And I just really could not love Coeur d'Alene more than I do.
Amazing. First question. How would you address the city's rising housing costs that are forcing many locals to leave? Is there a solution?
There is a solution, and that's getting really creative and working with our building partners and our realtors, which we're doing. For instance, the City of Coeur d'Alene currently offers free ADU templates for local builders, and that just helps streamline the process and build the inventory quicker and remove some of that red tape that we currently have. So continuing to be innovative and collaborative with our partners in the community is something that we need to keep doing on a regular basis, because we're not slowing down, as we know, and we want our young families to remain in Coeur d'Alene and to actually return here as well.
Next question. Can you assure voters you will not vote to raise property taxes? Whether yes or no, please provide an explanation.
So our budget is the most challenging issue right now facing the Coeur d'Alene City Council and Mayor. I will continue to collaborate with our city team to identify any efficiencies, prioritize essential services, and make informed, responsible financial decisions. Since 2016, Coeur d'Alene's property tax revenue from new development and annexations has declined by over 70%. And this is largely due to changes in Idaho law, which, as you know, Coeur d'Alene City Council doesn't play a role in. So we need to work with our state partners and advocate for a compromise that works both for Idaho as a whole, but in particular with my position, our municipalities, and our ability to collect new construction revenue to support the additional services that the growth demands.
Thank you. Final question. What do you believe is the top challenge facing the city in the years ahead, and what can be done about it?
Well, I touched on that a little bit with the budget. I do think is our top challenge that we're going to be facing for the next several years. Also growth and managing growth in a responsible way. We want everyone to enjoy Coeur d'Alene, and we want to manage it responsibly. And we have great partners, as I mentioned before, with our builders and our realtors, and our city team is on top of working with our planning and our zoning codes to ensure that we can manage growth and the infrastructure required to keep up with the growth as efficiently and effectively as we can.
Thank you. We have 1 minute for a closing statement.
I'm proud of having brought 12 years of proven experience to Coeur d'Alene, paired with my deep commitment to serving the community that I have called home for decades. Over the last 12 years, I built a track record of collaboration, thoughtful decision-making, and leadership on issues that matter most: public safety, responsible growth, housing, and supporting local businesses. My long service means I understand both the history and the future of Coeur d'Alene. I know how to balance growth while protecting the character of our community, how to listen and respond to residents, and how to ensure our city government remains transparent, accountable, and focused on results. I'm extremely proud and honored to be endorsed and supported by Coeur d'Alene Firefighters Local 710, Lake City Employee Association, North Idaho Builders, and the Coeur d'Alene Realtors. And thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for joining us today.
Our next candidate is JD Claridge. JD, you'll have 1 minute to introduce yourself. Then I'll ask you 3 questions, which you'll have 2 minutes each to answer. Finally, you'll have 1 minute for a closing statement. JD, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm JD Claridge. I have lived in North Idaho for the last 20 years or so. I'm a family man. I have 5 kids and married to my wife, Coeur, for 25 years. We have been enjoying this area for a long time and living here, but I'm not a career politician. I'm a businessman. I have a drone business called Xcraft, and I wanted to get into public service to kind of see some things in this area that I want to help improve.
Thank you so much for sharing that. For our first question, how would you address the city's rising housing costs that are forcing many locals to leave? Is there a solution?
Well, I think the housing issue is a bigger problem than we can fully address. Obviously, it's a national issue, but there are things that we can do. I definitely favor family-friendly development. And in my mind, family-friendly development is favoring single-family homes and growth, which is horizontal growth rather than vertical growth. So not high-rise apartment buildings, but maybe smaller lot sizes, which we'd also have to work with our state legislators to allow, and then smaller homes. And I want to encourage and help families to be able to afford houses. And I want to encourage home ownership. So smaller houses on smaller lot sizes will help that.
Thank you. Our next question. Can you assure voters you will not vote to raise property tax? And whether yes or no, please provide an explanation.
So I do not want to raise property taxes, and I will assure voters that we will not raise property taxes if I'm in charge. That's something that I think that you pay your fair share right now, and I don't think we need to raise that. I think that there's things that we can do in this town. Because we are a resort town, we can really lean into tourism. And we can do that by potentially creating a hotel tax, which will offset the burden on our citizens. And we have to work with our state legislators to allow this, but it's something that I think we can do.
Thank you. JD, for our final question. What do you believe is the top challenge facing the city in the years ahead, and what can be done about it?
Yeah, I think the top challenge in our area is going to be growth and how we manage growth. It's not an issue of if we're going to grow, it's really how we're going to grow. And I want to grow in a way that favors families. I think that you draw families to this region, and families strengthen communities. And so the how we do that, I think, is to make sure that any new development that's happening is family friendly. So we're building a lot of single family homes that are small maybe. We're also building a lot of parks and trails and other types of amenities that draw families.
Now it's time for closing statements. As a reminder, you have 1 minute. JD.
Thank you for allowing me to represent you. I want to do that. So the land north of I-90 in Coeur d'Alene is actually at a higher elevation than the land here where we're currently sitting, which is downtown Coeur d'Alene. And I want to elevate Coeur d'Alene. I want to elevate the voices of the people that live in the area that I live, which is north of I-90. Communities like Canfield and Coeur d'Alene Place and the Landings. Right now, I don't think the voices of these people that live in this area are being heard. But I hear you, and I want to be your voice on City Council. I'm JD Claridge, and I would appreciate your vote.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Our next candidate is Bill Brooks. Bill, you will have 1 minute to introduce yourself. Then I will ask you 3 questions. You will have 2 minutes per question to answer. And then we will have 1 minute for a closing statement. Bill, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, my wife and I moved here in 1999 and loved it. It was one of those things. We came from Portland, and we're very glad we came from Portland. We didn't come from California. But we got here and just found it fantastic. It was like a dream come true. And we would wake up every morning and go, do you want to go golfing? You want to go fishing? What do you want to do? There's so many things to do in Coeur d'Alene. And it was wonderful. And at that point, I never thought about running for public office. I actually started working for the Coeur d'Alene Press, doing the consumer guy, writing an original article twice a week. And I did that for 2 years and for no pay. And I think helped a lot of people.
Bill, our first question is, how would you address the city's rising housing costs that are forcing many locals to leave? Is there a solution?
There's no short-term solution. Everybody's looking for a short-term solution. They want to get in there and find the magic wand and make more affordable housing. And that's another thing, affordable. What may be affordable to you is not affordable to me. And I think that's something people need to think about when they ask a political candidate or even each other, do we need more affordable housing? Well, we need more housing, but affordable is the question.
Thank you. Second question. Can you assure voters you will not vote to raise property taxes? Whether yes or no, please provide an explanation.
I can assure them that during my 4 years in, we will raise property taxes. I don't like that because we're just up to the edge. We're already taking foregone taxes, which in terms, as far as I'm concerned, that's a property tax increase, in that we tell people what their taxes are and then turn around and claw back some money from a previous year that they didn't budget, that they didn't pay. If people want more services or want the same services with the existing population, you need to think about raising taxes. My wife and I live on Social Security and a very small government pension from the military. We don't want to have more taxes, but we certainly want to have the services that we've become accustomed to.
Thank you. Our final question. What do you believe is the top challenge facing the city in the years ahead, and what can be done about it?
Well, it's a combination of higher taxes and a place for people to live. And to some extent, they go hand in hand. I've talked to people who don't want it to grow any here, and they say, let's just stop people from coming here. You can't do that. It's not legal, and they're allowed to come here. But at the same time, there are people that can't afford more taxes. So how do we provide for additional housing if we can't charge for those services? And there's an old adage that is not true. Just let growth pay for itself. Well, growth never pays for itself. And it gets very tight when we get more people with more services. And it's going to be a problem that we all have to agree on where we go. I'm for less houses. I'm not for going up, and there's no place to go out. We have south, we go into the lake. We have north, there are cities there. You go to the east, and we've got the mountains. Go to the west, we've got Post Falls. So we can't spread out. So what do? Well, we make it as efficient as we can with condos and duplexes, but they have to be thought about long and hard before they're approved. Just because it's a condo or just because it's a duplex doesn't mean it's a good project. What does it do to our traffic? What does it do to our EMS coverage? Those are key questions.
Thank you. Okay, we have 1 minute for a closing statement.
I spent 6 years on the Kootenai commission. I was as a Kootenai commissioner, and that was a long 6 years, and that's a very intense service on the commission, and I did it as a service. I said before I ran for that office, I said I would only serve 2 terms, and then I would move aside and let somebody else have a shot at it. Well, I will only serve 1 term here, and I'm looking forward to it. Brainstorming, thinking outside the box. I've got a million cliches, but you understand what we have to do. We have to think about some different ways of handling the problems we're facing and doing it together. It's very important. I'm very happy that we've not had problems politically with each other in Kootenai County.
Thank you very much for joining us today,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Brooks.
Our next candidate is Kenny Gabriel. Kenny, you'll have 1 minute to introduce yourself, and I'll ask you 3 questions. You'll have 2 minutes for each answer. Finally, you'll have 1 minute for closing statements. Kenny, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, for 1 minute, I'll be quick. I'm Kenny Gabriel, and I'm a forever resident of Coeur d'Alene. I am a proud Lakeland Hawk. I am married to my wife, Wendy. I have 5 children and 5 grandchildren. My career here has started with the Coeur d'Alene Fire Department, where I spent around 40 years, 19 years as the fire chief, and learning from all of that, being part of the community. When I retired, I didn't want to be out anymore. I wanted to be part of the community again. So when I was given an opportunity to jump into the council seat, I did. And now here we are, and I'm going through an election, which is something I never thought I would do, but thrilled to do for my community I love so much.
Thank you for sharing that, and welcome. For our first question, how would you address the city's rising housing costs that are forcing many locals to leave? And is there a solution?
Well, we want our kids to stay home, don't we? That's the scary part for this whole situation we go through. And we've talked to a bunch of different folks, and we're learning we don't have the inventory, right? So what can we do to help the contractors? What can we help the realtors to build more inventory and look at ways that we can lower the cost? It's an incredibly difficult, complex subject. And one of the things I would like to try to do quickly is work with our legislators and see if there's any way we can look at incentives and incentivize to the developers to do something to help build the affordable homes. The density in Coeur d'Alene is something we're going to have to address, and that correlates with, I'm going to call it affordable housing, but that situation that you just talked about. And it's tough. It's a tough one, but it's something that I know that members of the council right now have done an amazing job working through. I'm definitely the freshman of the group in learning, but I can tell you it's something that's very important, and we're going to listen to every avenue we possibly can and go every way we can to make this work, because I want my grandkids to stay here and I want your grandkids to stay here. So we'll work through it.
Thank you. Our next question. Can you assure voters you will not vote to raise property taxes? And whether yes or no, please provide an explanation.
No. I would love to say that I could, because we just voted to raise them. And unfortunately, we are really hamstrung with how we can raise revenue, the amount we can get. And the legislature has given us some hurdles, and that's okay, but we can work with them. But as the need for services grow, our ability to get funds in the general fund do not. So when you're looking at a $60 million budget, but we can only get so much of the new growth that we've gotten in the past. From new construction, we've gotten money. And that has all kind of hamstrung us. And revenue statewide it down. So what are we going to do to maintain these services that I think the community has really come to expect? And, I just said before the last question, we want to look at what we can do with the legislators. And I think we're going to do that with this as well. But the good and bad news is if we do raise the taxes, it's not an enormous amount because our levies change so much. And that's a whole different situation, and a whole different conversation that you probably don't want to have in 2 minutes. But it's a difficult thing for us to do. And raising taxes is nothing I'm in favor of at all. I understand we have a bunch of seniors and people on fixed incomes. The last thing we want to do is tax them out of their homes. But we need to look hard at what we're going to do with the deficit we have in our budget right now. And that is kind of maybe priority one is what we're going to do in the future with our budgets.
Thank you for sharing that. Kenny, final question for you. What do you believe is the top challenge facing the city in the years ahead, and what can be done about it?
The budget, again. The budget's a bit big one. We have kind of three of them that kind of fall into each other. Affordable housing, great questions, by the way. The second is how are we going to balance our budget down the road? And third, what are we going to do about these revenues? Growth is growth, right? Everybody says we need to sustain growth, and growth has to pay for growth. Well, it's pretty tough for growth to pay for growth in the model that we have right now. So our community is kind of where it's at from the standpoint of we can't get much bigger, because of the area city impact and where we are already, we're kind of grown out. But what are we going to do with going up in density? So we need, the reason I say that, I don't want to get off topic, but to get more money, we have to raise more money. And to raise more money, we have to have more population, more taxes. So this all kind of comes in this great big pot of ours to what are we going to do? Well, the one thing I don't want to do is cut services either. I just said I don't want to cut taxes, but we don't want to cut services. People have come to expect them. So how are we going to bridge that gap? So one of the first things I'm going to do is try to get with legislators again. You've heard me say that once already, but that's important to me to try to show them the issues we're having right now and how it directly affects our community. So we got to do something about the budget. We have to look at revenues, and with that, growth is all part of that whole combination.
Thank you for sharing that. Now it's time for your closing statements.
Well, thank you for this opportunity. This has been a journey I never thought I would take. I never wanted to be a politician, and I'm not a politician, but how thrilled am I to be sitting here with all of you right now and the ability to talk about ways we can help our community, ways that, I don't have all the answers by any stretch, but I have the passion to want to do a good job for you. So I appreciate this. I'm available 24/7. You probably shouldn't say that right off the bat, but I'm very much available to my community, and we're from here, and I love it here, and I'm going to do my best. And thank you.
Thank you for sharing that with us, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
On behalf of the Joint Public Policy Committee representing the Coeur d'Alene Regional, Hayden, Post Falls, and Rathdrum Chambers of Commerce, in partnership with the Hagedon Media Group, the Coeur d'Alene Post Falls Press, Lindsay, Tyrell, Javis, Hilo, and I want to thank all of the candidates for taking part in this year's Meet the Candidate series. We also extend our thanks to the production teams at Quicksilver Studios, Hagedon Media Group, and the Coeur d'Alene Press. And of course to you, the voters, for watching and learning about the individuals who wish to serve our community. Over the 2 evenings, we've listened to those who aim to lead and represent our cities and schools. And because voting is one of the most powerful rights and responsibilities we share as Americans, we encourage everyone to stay engaged, stay informed, and most importantly, exercise your right to vote.